Hello everyone, welcome to my first video on my new channel. My name is Kirsten and I started this to spread some wellness, I guess, like those positive vibes, the good vibes, share my story, my experience. So if you like what you're hearing, you like to hear me talk, subscribe. If anything that I say resonates with you, if you want to share your story, give me a little bit of insight. I'm hoping that this is what my channel can kind of bring to the world and to all of you guys. So actually a lot of that has to do with tarot and astrology, spirituality, which I would really like to talk about on my channel as well. I made an Instagram actually in February for like wellness and having like really nice mental health quotes and things like this. Yeah, so I'll have like the thing, what is that called? My username, my Instagram. I'll have the Instagram thing here somewhere, you know, as everyone does. So I thought first video would be really nice, like get to know me, story time kind of thing. So that's what we're gonna do. If you're triggered by like self-harm, depression, suicide, anything, drug use, drug abuse, it is not fun to be just going through your day, watching a cool video that you think you're gonna relate to, and then out of nowhere a trigger pops up. So, oh, and if you guys have any triggers, put them down below in the comment section, and then I'll update time stamps in the description as well. So without further ado, I'll stop rambling, although this entire video is going to be me rambling, and any other video that you see is going to be me rambling, because that is what I do. I guess we should start when all of like my mental health things started. And my experience with mental health, that was when I was like 9 or 10, actually no, probably younger. I was like 8 when I experienced my first little red flag, I guess, that, you know, my mental health was not at peak shape. And that was, I honestly don't remember what happened, but I went into my closet and I was crying like so much, and I actually took a hanger and I tried to hang myself. And a lot of the time as a kid you don't know what these big feelings are. Like you may have these big feelings, and if you don't have an open dialogue and you don't have someone to, you know, that you feel like you can talk to in a safe way, those feelings can really be too overwhelming to the point that you do feel like ending your life. Even if you think that a kid is too young to think about death, there are plenty of kids out there who, unfortunately, this is something they experienced. And unfortunately, that at that age that I was, that was my first experience. I guess like 3 years later, 2 years later, one of the biggest life-changing moments for me and for my family was when my dad got into a skating accident that left him to have his shoulder dislocated. It was a really, really difficult time for my family and I, because he fell into such a big depression. He's such an active guy, and especially back then, he was super active. You know, he grew up playing sports. He actually wanted to volunteer to be a hockey coach because he played hockey his entire life. And this left him to not have the full mobility in his right shoulder. We would see my dad quite depressed. This plays a big part of my life and my family's life. We're gonna skip to 7th grade. 7th grade, my mental health again, not so great. At the end of grade 7, one of my best friends, my closest friend that I had since I was 10, actually moved back to the country she was born in. And that kind of started my whole, like, anyone can leave your life at any moment and you don't have control over it. In grade 8, so we're talking like grade 7, I was 12, 13. Grade 8, I was 13, 14. So I was really sad. You know, my family wasn't doing as much because of this depression that my dad had fallen into. He was on pain medication. He had a long-term pain management problem. You know, even as a kid, you can feel the environment and the vibes and the energy shift. At least for me, I felt that shift. And so lots going on as teen years and high school, middle school, those kinds of things go. So basically, I'm all over the place. Okay, so grade 8, I was trying to find my new friend group. And at this time actually is when I started to self-harm. You know, self-harm is different for everyone. For me, my self-harm was cutting myself. And this was something that I hid. I started drifting from the people that I was friends with in the grade 7 year. So ultimately I ended up pushing those people away. I ended up meeting at the time, my best friend, and her and I, we spent so much time together. We had such a good time together. We could confide in each other. And again, we connected on this whole dysfunctional family kind of aspect in our lives. The majority of my friends that I had were going to a different high school. And so it was the same thing with middle school where I was kind of starting anew. And I didn't know where I fit in, as most people feel when they're in high school. It's such a weird, awkward time. So I was kind of bouncing around friend groups. My best friend and I at the time weren't talking as much. But I ended up kind of, like I said, bouncing around friend groups. But my depression and my anxiety started increasing immensely during this time. And so the self-harm started increasing as well. And I used to, cry in the hallways because I didn't feel comfortable crying at home, because I didn't want anyone to get suspicious, or, I was always so afraid of being sent to the hospital. Because in my family, it was this really stigmatized thing, going to the mental health hospital, was seen as they're not going to treat you right. You're going to be surrounded by a bunch of crazy people, which is an awful stigma to have and to carry within you when you're someone who is struggling with mental health issues. So I needed to hide this from my parents, is what I felt, and I needed to hide that from the adults in my life because I didn't want to be seen as crazy. I didn't want to be in a place where crazy people were. So the peers around me didn't understand why I was being so weird, why I'm crying in the hallway, why I'm, telling them that I'm so sad, Like, why aren't you talking to your parents? Why don't you like talk to a professional? Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And so this backlash that I had from my peers made me go deeper inside of myself, made me kind of push these feelings even deeper to myself. So I want to say midway through my 9th grade, I would walk around the halls a lot of the time just by myself, trying to kill time, trying to not have the thoughts that I was having. And I was writing a lot in a journal that I had, and a lot of the things that I was writing were, I don't know why I'm feeling this way, like, I hate myself, I'm disgusting, I'm an awful person, I'm ugly, no one loves me, why would anyone love me, like, I'm worthless. And it was, those are really awful things to feel about yourself, and it's really difficult to feel those emotions as a young adolescent. It's difficult to be vulnerable, especially when you know that a lot of people are going to see such private things. So I even remember this specific journal entry I had, and it was like, my parents have each other, my best friend at the time had a boyfriend, they have each other, my sister has a boyfriend, they have each other, everyone's going to be fine if I'm not here. And around this time, I was also walking to school late because I always had trouble waking up in the morning. I was always up late, talking to people on the internet, trying to connect with someone. Honestly, a lot of those people helped me cope and helped me feel less alone. And, I was able to reach out to them when I was feeling suicidal, when I was feeling all of these anxious, overwhelming feelings. I was able to come to them, and it was this like safe place almost. At this time, I was walking to school quite late. I would be crying on my way to school because of the suicidal thoughts I was having, suicidal ideations. I would walk along this highway, and I would think of just going out in front of a car and just getting hit by a car, wanting all of the things that I was feeling to be done, to be over with. So this journal entry that I wrote was shortly before I decided that I was going to take medication from the cabinet. It was menstrual medication. And I was going to overdose on that. And shortly, like the night before I did that, I was actually texting my ex-boyfriend at the time, just like a final, like, someone help me, someone tell me you care about me, someone validate me. And his girlfriend replied saying, like, don't text him again. And so it was almost like, I don't blame these people at all, by the way, we all go through things for a reason, and sometimes we have the tools to deal with these things. We have the ability to help people with these things, but I was talking to other 15-year-olds about this, and most 15-year-olds don't have these tools, so it was kind of another push that, okay, I don't belong here. Like, why am I here? No one wants me here. So I swallowed these pills. I went to bed crying, as most nights I did. And I woke up, my heart was beating so fast, I was sweating, and honestly at this moment it was like a wake-up call. It was like, no, I don't want to die, I just want these feelings to stop. And I got really scared, and so I went to my mom and I was crying, and I woke her up and I said, I did something bad, I don't want to die. And she was panicking, of course. She was like, what do you mean? She went to go get my dad. We all sat down and I said, you know, this is how I've been feeling, this is what's been happening. And this was one of the hardest conversations that I had, and one of the most hurtful, because I was finally reaching out for help, and my dad was like, okay, show us your self-harm, show us. And I showed them. At this point, it was all over my arms, it was all over my legs, on my thighs, on my hips, and it wasn't deep, you know, they weren't deep. I'm sorry to go into details. And my dad said, if you wanted to kill yourself, you would have taken enough medication. You would be cutting the other way and deeper. Man, it was tough. Someone that was supposed to protect you and love you, be there for you, telling you that so you're just doing it for attention. And regardless of if I was doing it for attention or not, it was something that I needed help with. And so we moved on from that day, didn't really talk about it after, and I did start cutting deeper. I started cutting more frequently. I started distancing myself more from them, started talking more on the internet, tried to look at different ways to commit suicide. And if you're a parent out there, this is something you should never, never tell your child who's struggling with mental health. You get them to go to a therapist. You do what it takes, no matter if it makes you uncomfortable or if it makes the child uncomfortable. You need to be able to give them the tools to heal from these unhealthy coping mechanisms and find the cause of their pain. I went to a walk-in counselor maybe twice, and she was like a counselor in training, and she told me that my problems sounded like I had boy problems. Again, invalidating the experience that I was having. So all of these people, all of these things that, you know, I was still a child needing support, needing help, needing guidance. And I was being told that the feelings that I was feeling weren't these scary feelings of wanting to die. You know, they were just normal teenage experiences. I would be in high school going to gym class with long pants and a long sweater, long sleeve shirt. I would change in the bathroom because I didn't want people to see. I pretended that everything was fine. I pretended that I was happy, I was healthy, I was doing well. 12th grade, I guess it was. By the way, like, I wasn't seeing any like external family. It was just my immediate family. We were very closed off from all of our other family. And a lot of it had to do with my dad and his injury, because, oh my God, I literally have never, last year of high school, came home. I have dogs, and my dogs, if my dad was home, they would be downstairs with him because he worked from home. They were upstairs, and I figured, okay, he must be at the store because he would go to the store a lot, or he'd go for walks, and be gone for like an hour or so. On my computer, just, you know, probably on Facebook or something, like singing or something. And my mom comes home from work, and by the way, at this time my sister was out of the house. She had moved out already, so my mom comes home, she asks me where my dad is, and I'm like, I don't know, like maybe he's at the store, I don't know. So I hear her go downstairs, and I hear her kind of like laughing, saying my dad's name, and saying like, wake up, haha, very funny. And he wasn't waking up. And so I hear my mom's voice panicking. She's screaming, and she's saying his full name, which she never does. And, you know, that scream will literally probably stay in my memory for a long time, because it's probably like the worst, one of the worst sounds I've ever heard. And she's about to call 911 because he's not responsive, and he kind of wakes up, and I go downstairs. I see that the mug I bought him for Christmas is shattered on the floor. He has a cut on his nose, and he's like slurring his words, really out of it. And so really defensive, saying like everything's fine. He just hit his nose. He must have like had something like hit his head or something. But this was the first time that my dad overdosed. So I'm panicking. I call my sister. I say, this just happened. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. Something's wrong. Like, I can tell something's wrong. And kind of in that moment, I think, in that moment, everything made sense. The reasons we didn't go on trips, the reasons that we didn't see our family for Christmas anymore, like the reason we didn't do family activities anymore. And that was because my dad was dependent on his pain medication. He became addicted to his pain medication. And so my family brushed us under the carpet again. Pretended everything was normal after this, but a couple months later, couple months later, I was walking home from school, and my God, I'm like so dissociating right now. I'm sorry. But what had happened was my dad overdosed again, and this time my mom found him. My sister was there, my best friend from 8th grade, still my best friend, and she was actually living with us. She was there, and they all had to witness witness my dad blue in the face because he wasn't getting any oxygen. My mom had to perform CPR. I was told that my dad was in the hospital. And so, because he overdosed. And so, we were all freaking out. We were going through his stuff, going through his garbage. And that's when we found bloody tissues. We found needles, and we found little baggies, empty baggies. And I remember researching what the baggies looked like and what drugs come in those, and it was heroin. My dad was addicted to heroin. This is difficult. So my sister moved back in. So much trauma in my 17th, 18th year of my life. But he was the one to comfort me. I started spending a lot of time with him. But he was also quite a manipulative and emotionally abusive person, and was actually fully in relationships with other people as well as me, saying, telling me that you're gonna get married, blah, blah, blah. But it's a whole thing. I can talk about dysfunctional relationships in another video, but that really impacted me as well, that relationship I had with him. So, Dad discharged himself from the hospital. He ended up going to a big city near us to find more drugs, because we had told him it's either us or the drugs, because if you keep doing this, you're not gonna be here. And so after I think about a week of me being at my friend's house, my dad decided to get help. And that phone call, when my mom called me to say, your dad, you can come home, we can go home. Your dad said, that he's going to get help. And when he was in the detox center, I spent any opportunity that I had to go see him. And seeing anyone that you love in the hospital, withdrawing off of drugs and doing this. It's hard. It's an image and a thing that sticks with you, especially as a child. You know, I was in the mindset that I'm going to be his rock, I'm going to be his support system. I mean, I was still going to school at this time. Like, only my close friends knew what was happening. And I actually ended up not graduating the same year that my friends did because I didn't pass a lot of the courses because I, for whatever reason, was not able to postpone my exams, even though I had explained to the principal, I explained to the guidance counselor, to my teacher, the situation, what was happening. And even before this, I spent like most of the beginning of my day in the guidance office having panic attacks, like even before finding out about my dad, you know, like I was already having problems. And so they said, no, you still gotta write it. We can't postpone it. Like, we can't have you do a different exam. You still have to write it. And I carried this anger with me for so long, of this judgment that people have of people who are addicted to drugs or alcoholics. This like idea that we depersonalize, we villainize these people when we're all just people who are dealing with our own struggles, and some of us have unhealthy coping mechanisms. Same as me self-harming, drug addicts, that's their self-harm. And I ended up doing a couple courses in an adult learning center, got my diploma, and then I was going to university. I was moving out, but in between this year of after high school to university, my relationship with this guy, thought I was gonna move in with him, thought my future was with him, found out that he was lying to me. He was telling people my family problems and telling them that that's why he was with me, because he felt sorry for me, or I was his side bitch, or telling people I was crazy and obsessed with him, when I wasn't. But like I said, that's a whole other story. But this kind of formed my distrust in relationships, especially with male figures. You know, parents, they all have their own tools. They're always just doing the best that they can. Some parents cannot provide what their children need. Finally, I get to first year of university, moved out of the house, and I'm confronted with so many of my traumas. I'm confronted with how unhealthy my environment was compared to my peers. I'm confronted with being on my own for the first time, struggling with money. And at this point, my anxiety, my panic attacks were so bad. I would have panic attacks going to school, like going to class, if I didn't get there like 30 minutes early. I wasn't socializing really with my roommates. Sometimes I would, most times I wouldn't. I was smoking a lot, and flunked out of my first year of university and I was really ashamed of it because I didn't want to be like one of those people who couldn't make it through their first year of university. But finally, thankfully, I had people around me who supported me and said, let me take care of you, let me help you. For the first time, I felt supported and I felt seen and heard. And I'm so thankful for the universe and for the stars, everything, that I met these people, because they pushed me to heal and grow. They gave me meals when I couldn't cook for myself. They listened to me. They made me feel special and unique. I cry a lot. I'm a Pisces with a Cancer moon, so if you know anything about astrology, you know I have a lot of emotions. She actually got me to write an email to a therapist, and I was too nervous to send it, so she sent it for me. Therapy, like, changed me. It helped me, and I'm so thankful that I found a therapist that was able to guide me and able to help me heal myself. Cope with my multiple panic attacks that I'd have during work, during whenever, especially if I was triggered about the trauma that I had. And I still deal with those things. Like, I still have those triggers. I still have flashbacks, but it's easier to deal with now because I have the tools. Therapy, honestly, like I say all the time, it's the best thing you can do for yourself. If you're in a dark spot, if you're feeling lost, if you're feeling alone, like, that's why I want to make this channel. If you've gone through experiences that I've gone through, if you've gone through traumatic experiences, you know, whether that be abuse, like whatever it is, things can get better. They can. This is so emotional. Emotional first video, starting off right. And I've never been so excited for my future and excited to be alive and happy and thankful and grateful. So I want to help people who are just like me see that it's possible to do what you want. It's possible to chase after your dreams. So I'm gonna wrap it up there. I do want to be posting on either Mondays. So I do on my Instagram. I started doing Mental Health Mondays, and yeah, so thank you guys for watching, for listening. Thank you for allowing me to share my story, share my experience, and I love you, and I hope that we see each other soon.